everybody! Do any of you ever get really frustrated when someone does you wrong and they show no signs of remorse? This used to get me so heated until I finally learned to just stop waiting for an apology from people who do not have the capacity to do it. And what's even worse, when you manage to get that long-awaited apology and you know it's not genuine. That tells me more about the person than anything else. So today we are talking about forgiveness and why you should stop waiting for an apology from people who have wronged you. If that piques your interest, keep watching. So forgiveness. I really value forgiveness. It is extremely important to me. I'm not a fan of resentments, and I think that holding grudges is really tacky. It also amazes me how people can hold a grudge for years in an attempt to prove a point, because proving that point honestly rarely ever works, especially if it goes on for that long. One of the best things that I've ever learned is that forgiveness is for you, not for the person that hurt you. It's so that you don't spend your entire life dwelling on situations. So take a minute and think about a situation when someone has hurt you. Now think about how it made you feel. And just like the rest of us, it stung every single time that you thought about it and you just couldn't let it go. The longer you think about it, the more angry you get. Now think about the person that hurt you. I bet they aren't giving it a single thought. And this may be controversial, but forgiveness isn't transactional. It's not required to receive an apology in order to forgive somebody. The purpose of forgiveness is so that you can let go of the situation and live a peaceful and happy life. You have to let go of that anger, those negative thoughts, that frustration that's gonna keep you down, especially from things that you cannot control. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's a great feeling to know that someone has forgiven you or that you forgave someone and there are no ill feelings. But some people literally don't care. And please don't forget that forgiveness is actually a huge part of self-care. And I mean real self-care, not hashtag self-care. Another thing is that people always forget how much actually goes into an apology. There are two main things that a person has to be capable of in order to give a genuine apology. One, empathy. Straight up empathy for your feelings or whoever it is that they're apologizing to. And two, humility, a very difficult thing to have. The humility to admit that they've hurt you. And some people are incapable of responding in the way that you want because they lack both empathy and humility. And for some people, what makes it really difficult is that they value being right much more than the relationship itself. Ooh, and I really hate it when in some cases people they keep track of situations that they could use down the road. I don't know if it's just me that's experienced that. They'll be like, well, you know, you did this to me one time and I forgave you, so I feel like you should forgive me this time for doing something. Even though they're completely different situations and one has nothing to do with the other. But I think that people forget the biggest slap in the face is that the person who isn't apologizing is indirectly saying, hey, you're not worth it. This relationship is not worth it. It's not worth my pride, my image, nope. But on the other hand, we do have to keep in mind that some people literally can't. There are people that can help themselves but choose not to, and others that aren't, what's the word? They can't be rational or stable. But people have to feel a lot of feelings before wanting to apologize. And then getting to that point of having empathy and having humility is never going to happen if their ego is in the way. And that's coming from someone who used to have a very large ego. So I want to play devil's advocate for a moment, because I am a firm believer in always seeing all sides to the story or situation before giving my opinion. So evaluate the situation and really think about why that person hasn't apologized. There's always probably a reason. Some people grew up in either non-confrontational homes or in homes where their negative behavior is accepted and considered normal. And that could be completely different from your upbringing. That doesn't mean that one side is right and the other is wrong. It just comes down to the dynamic and the expectations of your relationship with that person and where you want it to be. Let's say that you know someone, because we all do, who is outspoken and doesn't have a filter. And maybe you grew up in a home that is a little bit more conservative than that. They say some things that may have offended you or hurt your feelings, but you don't verbally tell them that you're hurt because you want them to catch on to how you're feeling based on your physical behaviors. The change in your body language and the change in your demeanor should say it all, right? Maybe if you're in person, you stop looking at them or you stop engaging in conversation with them. I mean, we've all done it. You're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for them to get the hint and just apologize. And call it what you want. I find this type of expectation and behavior to be unfair and a little bit childish. And make no mistake, I used to do it all the time. And when I say it's childish, I'm talking about very surface level and common problems. Nothing that involves really deep trauma. Very serious situations are a bit different. Anyway, how do you expect a person to apologize if they genuinely being the key word, are not aware? I believe that in order for someone to change, and I mean truly change, they need to be aware of their behaviors and how they're negative to other people. If no one tells them what's wrong, how will they know? Especially when they're more often around other people that either behave in the same way or where that behavior is accepted. And that ties into a whole different conversation about communication, or the lack of and poor communication, but that's another video for another day. Some of you may not like to hear this, but we all get offended by things in life, but that doesn't always mean that we're owed an apology or some kind of explanation. There's a huge difference between wanting someone to change to better themselves and wanting someone to change to fit our worldview. And it's wrong for us to expect other people to change who they are for us. It's always a red flag when you see someone in a relationship, for example, when they're like, you need to change this, this, and this about yourself, but it's not to help the person, it's because you don't like those things about them. That's not their problem. So again, when you're evaluating those kinds of situations and you're reflecting on the situation, think about your relationship with that person, think about the expectations, and think about the real reasons why you want them to change who they are. So when it comes to apologies, what is it that you really want? You may think an apology is all that you need, but in reality, you may be looking for validations for your feelings. Validations. When in reality, you're looking for validation for your feelings. Also, honestly, how many times have you ever gotten that apology that you've been waiting for and the satisfaction never came? Are you looking for someone to recognize and rectify the consequences of their actions? Maybe that apology is the first step to being okay and moving forward. But what happens when the other person doesn't move at the same pace as you? You're at a place where you want to begin that healing process. But on the other side, maybe they haven't even gotten around to admitting that there was a problem in the first place. Is that apology worth putting your life on hold? Nope. Not a trick question. The more time you hold on to that hope that the other person will change their ways, the more of your life you've wasted. In no situation, none, can you control another person. So rather than trying to change them, decide what your limit is for how much you're gonna put up with. And honestly, really, even if you heard them say, I'm sorry, what happens after? How many times has someone apologized to you and they don't change? How many times have you been hurt in the same way by the same person? And in some cases, in most cases, maintaining their self-image is much more important. And the truth is, sometimes waiting for an apology isn't enough to solve the real problem. Think about how much power you give somebody when you depend on their actions to ease the situation. Who really is in control then? If you don't take ownership of your emotions, you'll never really move forward. So yeah, that's today's video. I purposely am not touching on certain things because again, I always want my videos to start a discussion and I'd love to hear what other people have to say. And in the end, most people or things have a way of weeding themselves out of your life on their own. You are the only person that can decide what you put up with. And what's funny is that in my experience, that whole expectation versus reality thing happens. I would daydream of the thousands of ways a conversation can go when either me or somebody else is apologizing to each other, and 100% of the time, it would never turn out how I expected. So I stopped expecting, I stopped waiting, and I started practicing forgiveness in a whole new way. So feel free to subscribe. If not, feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is Intricate. Otherwise, I'll see you at the next one. Thank you. Bye.